Pricing Masters, your code to unlock the profitability and growth of your company. The best pricing and monetization strategies from ValueShip's experts.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Pricing Masters series about SaaS pricing. Today we're going to discuss a little bit more about the things that we have covered with Chris regarding the value. We have decided that the matter that I was speaking about is a little bit more complicated than just a quick 20 to 30 minutes episode. So I decided to be alone today to deeply analyze how to create the right pricing statistical research for SMB and B2C companies. And at the same time, I think that me being alone with you kind of gets more of your attention because conversation is great, but it doesn't really allow to get into details that much. So, starting from the pricing statistical research, what is needed to make it properly? The first thing is, should I do it on my current customers or should I do it on my target audience? Obviously the latter, because your current customers are already anchored on your current pricing, and secondly, they are most likely going to give you a totally different answers regarding feature preferences because they're expecting new features, they already know the product, they already know the actual value created that you bring into the table, and this is a totally different story, and you'll have a false positive in your survey. This is like first thing. Second thing, what is the sample size that I need to reach? In general, obviously, the bigger the better, but 150 to 300 responses is more than enough. So the first thing is, okay, I know who should I contact, I know my customer segments, type of customers, I know that I need to get between 150 to 300 responses. It's enough to cut it into segments and pieces to analyze the data. So what else? Obviously, how to get the data. If you have access to communities whom your current market is, that's great. You can use it very well. All these like technological communities, product communities, fine, this is great. Sales communities, if you have an SEO tool, there are like a lot of them on the market. You can use it there. But if you don't have access to these people, then most likely you have to pay for them. In general, expect a cost per interview to be from like $10 to like even $50 if you have more sophisticated sample like CTOs or CEOs in the organizations. But considering the potential uplift that you can get from the right pricing research, again, 10% of the MRR, keep this in mind, I think it's worth the price. So we have covered the basics. Additional layer to it is like, which tool to use? I don't recommend using any like free software, any unsophisticated software like Google Docs or something like this. I'm not necessarily willing to recommend anything here, but look for something that has logic options, piping options, something that allows you to connect to the external panels. There are multiple tools on the market that serve this use case, but the choice and obviously the budget is yours. So we have covered the technical part. Now let's focus on the pure methodology. And there are a few things that you need to keep in mind regarding the pricing research for your SaaS company. The first thing is how to analyze the potential willingness to pay. Something that we have covered, something that we have talked a lot in the series, but very important one. The second thing is which features are the most and which features are the least preferred. The third thing is which value metrics are potentially acceptable and which are not. The fourth thing is packaging and payment options. And fifth is buyer personas that we actually want to analyze and get insights on. Let's start from the last one, buyer personas. In general, we recommend to put it into the pricing survey as one of the first questions. So you can quickly, first of all, use it as a screening, but secondly, get it into the context of which problems do they have, which problems they need to have solved quickly. What are their needs? What are their specifics? try to ask demographic questions regarding the market, regarding the size of the companies. These all things are useful, but focus on ideally finding your ICP, your ideal customer profile, so you can later divide it into the actual personas. It matters because we want to understand the differences in preferences. This is critical. So start from the buyer personas. Once you have this, you can move to the willingness to pay surveys. And there are multiple methods you can use, but let me tell you about one that is the most common and something that I think makes wonders. Why? It's well established, invented in 1973. It's Van Westendorp price sensitivity meter. If you add a thing that is called Newton-Miller extension, we're sourcing this in the material, you have a pretty good overall understanding of willingness to pay. Some people say this is outdated methodology. Some people say it's not that great. Having said that, I understand the feedback. I know the limitations, but I think still it's one of the easiest to use, the most applicable, and the ones that you can get up running very quickly. So how PSM works in a nutshell is you're presenting the product. Ideally, take your G2 description or description from the website, what the product is about, what it does, a general pitch that you would, like in a tweet, in a longer tweet, how you explain the product. It allows your customer to frame themselves in a certain way. And also it allows you to present it. This is enough to create a pricing perspective of the potential customer. Then you're asking, once you have presented the product, you are asking, at what price would you consider the product X to be too cheap to even consider it? So you'd question the quality, cheap, but you would think it's a bargain, expensive, but you would give some time to think of it, and too expensive to even consider it. The whole cafeteria of the questions is in the source material. Once you have this, you can take the cheap and expensive and ask, the numbers the customers gave. If they gave 99 in cheap and 149 in expensive, you need to pipe these answers to the next question, which is the Newton-Miller-Smith extension, and ask, what is the likelihood of you purchasing this product at X, which is $99, and what is the likelihood of purchasing at Y, which is your 149? Cheap and expensive answers. Why? It allows you to create a potential revenue distribution, allows you to calculate the sensitivity and psychological thresholds. Once you have this analysis, once you have the data, you need to plot these 4 lines together, and you will see the zone of your potential pricing range. The minimal, the maximal, the optimal price point. And here's the magic. You can cut it into the buyer segments that you currently have analyzed, and you can see the nitty-gritty details. So you can check if marketing Michael has higher willingness to pay than analytics Angela. This is basically the concept of segmenting it across personas. And it already tells you where you should be looking in your pricing. And the important thing, most likely you will see that they're willing to pay much more than what you're currently charging. It's important to ask about whether you charge it monthly, annually, in which metric initially. That's critical, but it allows you to get the overall optimization potential. Trust. Next, preferences. There are 2 types of questions you can ask here. The best one is max diff or best worst choice. In a nutshell, again, outlining the methodology in the source material, but in a nutshell, you outline the features of your whole product and ask which features are the most important, which are the least important. There is a certain method of showcasing them. The whole question is repeated like 4 to 5 times usually, but it allows you to calculate the utilities of these features. Once you have this, you can plot the most important features, right? So which ones generate the highest utility with willingness to pay based on the optimal price points from Van Westendorp. Then you create the value matrix. Value matrix is very simple. The features with high importance and moderate willingness to pay, they are your table stakes core features, something that you add to the standard product. This is something that pretty much everyone has it. These are the minimal requirements to even think of this product. if the features have high importance and high willingness to pay, these are the premium features. These are the features that you most likely want to have in your most expensive packages. If you have the features with high willingness to pay, but not so many customers actually want it, like maybe 10 to 15%, these are your perfect add-ons that you can add on top because some customers are willing to pay more for it. And all the others, not important, limited willingness to pay, it's a trash land. You should remove it out of the product or at least not present it to the customers. So as you can see, this part of the analysis already gives you a very strong insight on where you should be going with your pricing. You have the personas, you have the willingness to pay, you have the feature importance. But this was MaxD. If you don't have statistical capabilities to actually run it properly, I strongly recommend to do a simpler version. Outline the features and ask about what do you think of them. 1, not useful at all for me. 2, nice to have, but not necessarily. 3, it's a must-have in this use case. 4, this is something that I would definitely need and I would pay more to have it. 5, this is totally above what I ever need. Then you can use the features that are must-have to understand which are the table stakes and features I would pay more as differentiators. Again, you're plotting them against willingness to pay. There are like 2 different analyses, but you can see if certain features move the willingness to pay in a slightly higher way than the others. This is a little bit simplified, but still makes wonders. We have covered most important analysis. Now, everything else that we're going to cover is valuable, but if you're to focus on things, focus on this first part. The second part is getting the value metrics right, packaging and payment options. This is what the second part is about. When it comes to value metrics, very often companies want to change their value metric. They want to look for something else. Maybe they want to test the add-ons. Whatever you decide to do, you need to outline the potential value metrics and ask about the acceptability on the Likert scale from 1 to 7, whatever. But you need to also understand few things about good value metric. A good value metric comes from few components. First one, value metric needs to be aligned with value. So if I have a lead generation software, my value metric might be about lead generated, about prospects contacted, about marketing contacts in your inbox. This clearly shows you where the value might be. So this is important. Secondly, the metric needs to be scalable. So once I start, does it allow me for a future growth, both from the company perspective, but also from the client perspective? The third thing is whether the metric is auditable. So if a CFO comes in, this is how I usually explain this. If a CFO comes in, does he or she know for what we pay for? Can we quickly analyze the granularity of payments, how many users we have, how many tokens we're using, stuff like this? So is it auditable? Additional factor that we need to keep in mind is predictability. For some markets, predictability is super important because we want to know how much we'll be paying month to month because we want to budget it properly. So this is critical. And the last but not least is officially acceptability. Will I accept this metric? Once you have these questions asked, you more or less understand where the sentiment lies. It is more about understanding what customers don't want rather than what customers truly want. Once you have the value metrics covered, crossed, you actually can go into the packaging and payment options. The story with packaging and payment options is more or less the same as with value metrics. But the key thing here is with packaging, you need to ask in what type of plans customers prefer. Whether they would like to have a slider option, good, better, best, all-in-one, tiers, all these things that allow you to better understand how to create the design of your pricing page. Again, most likely you'll have a strong acceptability across most plans, but you will cross out the plans that customers hate. This is critical. We don't want to go with something that customers love We would really like to know what customers hate because we want to limit our options here. Same with payments, whether they want to have a flat tariff, whether they want to have the usage-based pricing, pay-as-you-go, something two-part tariff in which you have a flat rate and then it increases once you use it. All these things that you have came up with, how to better monetize your customer, you need to ask them whether they can accept it or not. Once you have this, you pretty much covered most important things in the basic pricing research. So we have willingness to pay, we have feature preferences, we have packaging, we have payment, we have value metrics, and obviously we have buyer personas in which we can cut the data. This is the methodological approach. How to analyze it? Well, I can only recommend to have a good analyst on board who can make it happen. Hire someone if you don't know how to do it, or start reading. I'm recommending 2 statistical guides on that. One is about a statistical guide for startup founders, and second thing is academic book about marketing research. It will tell you about a good questionnaire, which things to keep in mind. Very simple one. I have used it back in my days in the academia. Gave it to the students. This is something that I recommend. Once you have all the puzzles, you can move to ideating your pricing page. It's important because, honestly, there is no better way to understand the willingness to pay of your customers than simply asking them via survey. On top of that, you can do customer interviews, IDIs, focus groups. It's great, but if you have the opportunity and you really want to have this price tag and dollar tag on your current plans, this is the right approach to do it. And this is something that we recommend not only to our clients, but to generally any SaaS company worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Pricing Masters, a deep dive into how to run statistical pricing research for software as a service companies. Take care. Good luck.